Hi guys, I'm Evangeline, you can call me Vange, and welcome to the V Word. So in today's video, I want to talk about the word feminism. I'm sure that you've heard a lot about this word. From me, from your peers, from history, from your teachers. It comes up a lot. I want to get the conversation started because there are people that... Oh, hi Adonis. He's coming to comfort me. With this word, I feel like there's a lot of controversy, a lot of background, and a lot of misinformation that's being spread around about it. That's really why I want to talk about it. I want to get the conversation started because for some of it, I feel like there's no reason for it. I also feel like with this blog, I tell people, hey, I'm a feminist blogger, I have a YouTube channel. Their immediate face is like, you're a feminist? Like I'm like gonna grow 3 arms and tentacles or something, and I'm like, okay, that's not the reaction anybody should be getting from that word, but it's fine. So let's talk about it. The history of the word feminist has changed throughout the years, which I'll get a little bit into. But it is different today than it was 200 years ago. It's different today than it was 10 years ago. The word has grown with meaning, but it has stayed the same in that the word is feminism. And maybe that's where there's a little bit of a disconnect with people. And I also don't think people realize that when it comes to feminism, there's different kinds. There's liberal feminism, there's Marxist feminism, there's radical feminism, and radical feminism is really deep and goes in way 2 different directions, which we'll get into a little bit. What I hope that people understand by the end of this video is that whether or not they are a radical feminist or a liberal feminist or any other type of feminist, you know by that word they believe in equality of the sexes. So I wanted to bring up on my phone the actual definition of feminism. So if you Google feminism, you'll get a very simple definition. The advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. Simple. Basically, it's specific towards women, and it's about the equality of all of the sexes. Plural, non-specified, so all. Now, with this specific women, that really gets into more intersectional feminism. Intersectional feminism is inclusive of all the races and all the genders and all of the identifications or identities that people can have, and the equality of those as well. So that definition really misses that aspect of feminism, but for a 1-sentence definition, it basically covers it. Now, if you go into Urban Dictionary, you'll get a much different definition, which is, feminism is the radical notion that men are not people. Ladies and gentlemen, please do not use Urban Dictionary for anything. That's not feminism. It's not, I get it. That's what people think. Some people think. It's not. Just gonna put that out there. It's not. Now I want to go into a little bit about the different arguments against feminism, or basically just surrounding feminism, because there are a couple. First, there are people who are anti-feminists. They don't believe in the rights for women, basically. That's pretty much it. It's very simple. That's what anti-feminists are. Then I would say the next category of people are people who disassociate from the word feminist. So they're disassociates, is what we'll call them. And they are people who believe that men and women are equal. They probably even believe that all genders and all sexes are equal, inclusive of race, inclusive of gender, but they don't believe in the word feminist. Disassociates oftentimes refer to feminists as feminazis, people who want men and women and all genders to be equal are not Nazis. Don't use a disgusting term to define somebody advocating for people who have been oppressed. Whether you agree with what we're fighting for or not, or how we're fighting for it. We're not Nazis. Just slide that argument in there. That's one thing that you can't argue with me. If you say that, you're a gross person. That's it, period. I don't. Yep, okay, next. So then that brings us to our third category, which are feminists. And those are people who identify as feminist, who believe in the word feminism and what it modern day means, and believe in equality of the sexes and genders. Now, it can go even further into what kind of feminist they are, if they're liberal or Marxist or radical, but that is a deeper understanding of I think more political stances, usually, but on a basic level, they believe in the equality of human beings. There are certain types of feminism that have grown out of other kinds of feminism and certain historical and political events. And that's what I want to get into now, just to give you some history and background on a basic level of these different kinds that are, in my opinion, the most important, or at least the most influential kind of brick formation here to get us where we are today with feminism. So the book that I'm going to be referencing is The Feminist Thought by Rosemarie Tong and Tina Fernandes Botts. Super great book. I actually got this in my feminist theory class, and it's really just an overview of the different kinds of feminism. I highly recommend. So if you're interested in this topic and you want to really delve into the history of feminism, which I find really cool, I love history, I love feminism, obviously, just get this book. So the first kind of feminism I'm going to be talking about is liberal feminism. There are different waves of liberal feminism. The first wave is basically the suffragettes. So they're looking for rights to vote for women. The second wave of liberal feminism is to have equal rights for both men and women. And then the third wave is when you really get into that intersectionality. That's later in the 1900s. So it goes from getting the right to vote to equal rights to more intersectional types of feminism, which gets more into social issues too within politics, rather than just do women have the right to vote or not. It gets a little bit more gray area than black and white. The second kind of feminism is radical feminism. There are two different kinds of radical feminism that we'll talk about, and that's radical libertarian and radical cultural. So the first one, radical libertarian, they're more about androgyny, that people should pick up whatever male or female characteristics they want. And that is what feminism is about. And then there's radical cultural. They believe that women shouldn't be androgynous. They should maintain their core female or more feminine features. They believe that women should band together with their feminine qualities and try not to let men influence them as much as possible. Now, there's also a sect of this as well, which gets a little bit difficult because some of these radical cultural feminists who identify as such, they believe that women should govern men, that women are actually better than men, and this is where a lot of the hatred towards women stems, or feminist stems. I think that because this group was so, I don't want to say popular, but vocal, later in the 1900s, that especially the older generations now really associate feminism with these specific radical cultural feminists, and that's where the term feminazi comes from. That's where people start believing that feminists actually think that women are better than men, and that's where feminist comes from. And it's just one of those situations where it's like a few bad apples spoil the bunch, and I hate to say it like that, but really that's, I believe, where it comes from, because I'm not sure where else it would come from, considering that just we want equal rights. It's either that or they just really don't want us to be equal, and I hate to believe that of certain people, and there are for sure people out there that are like that, but people who just disassociate from the term, I don't want to believe that they're just misinformed. It's really what I think it comes from. Then there are Marxist or socialist feminists. This really goes against class struggles, and it goes into an argument of, well, are women themselves considered a class? And there's a few different angles and arguments against that, which we won't get into in this video. That's where that theory starts setting in, and if we fix these social problems, then it'll fix the sexist problems that we'll have as well. So that's another theory. Then there's women of color feminism, and this starts becoming global at this point. That's where this branches out into other countries and into other cultures, because at least women in the United States have a lot more rights than in other countries. And that's really what it talks about there, is colonization and the effects that it has. Then there's psychoanalytical feminism, which goes into Freudian theories, which have pretty much all been debunked, so I don't know why people would still be believing in this or call themselves psychoanalytical feminists, but you know, there's people who are misinformed, so that's why we're doing this video, right? Okay. Sorry about the siren, I live in Philly and everybody just... Okay, so now we're going to talk about ecofeminism, which is one of my favorite feminist theories, because it gets into spirituality, which I think is really cool, the study of different religions in feminism. There's a lot of different takes on feminism within just Catholicism. Think about it, how a lot of people are like, oh, Catholicism can be really, you know, demeaning towards women and for whatever reasons. But then there's people who are like, no, Catholicism is really great because Mother Mary, like, she's honored and she's, you know, revered in our culture because she was the mother of Christ, and without her, Christ wouldn't have happened, because women bear children and she bore Jesus. So that's a really, it's a fun one to think about. Your religious views aside, it's interesting to just study and learn about the different arguments, which is a whole nother thing altogether. I have a lot of feelings personally about religions, and especially about organized religion or churches per se, which we'll talk about in a different video. But then you can go into spirituality as well, and those are more belief systems, I would say, than religions, such as Wicca or the pagan beliefs. Because in those beliefs, women are really revered. They take so much power. They're goddesses, or both gods and goddesses rather than just one god, and you know, depending on which pagan belief you're talking about. And those are really cool because they get into the environment as well. And with ecofeminism, one of the biggest pillars of ecofeminism among all of them is that you're really relating it back to the earth and you're protecting the earth, and which is such an important topic, especially now, because global warming is real, because science is real, and if you don't believe in it, then you just don't believe in science, and if you don't believe in science, then you just... New day. The next theory, and the final theory that I'll talk about, very simple, is queer feminism, and that is just inclusive of LGBTQIA+, and everything that goes along with those issues as well. But just to give you an idea of all of these different kinds of feminism that really exist, you can have different backgrounds and be a part of these different feminists without even realizing it or knowing it. And it's important to have an understanding that feminism can be diverse, and feminism can have different arguments and theories behind it before you just go making assumptions about the word feminist. Because if you just go around saying, oh, feminists are feminazis, and you don't really understand the history of some of these theories, spirituality, that goes back to Christ. Ecofeminism goes back to when people first started existing on the planet, because it has to do with the relationship between humans and the earth. So these theories aren't just, you know, we have gone crazy in the past 10 years. That's not how it is. And to think that, you're just really ignorant. So to study the different historical and political events that all of these different types of theories of feminism gravitate towards is very critical. And I can't give you a whole background knowledge in each of these theories in one video, because it takes a whole study of it, and that's okay. But just the fact that you would understand that there's different kinds of feminism, and that the different kinds of feminism stem from different things, you're already 100% better than you were before, right? And now you have more of an understanding of where I'm coming from, more of an understanding where other feminists are coming from, just historically, just because of our backgrounds in feminism as women, as our own cultural history. Because in my opinion, I think that women have a really cool cultural history of all races, of all nationalities, backgrounds, ethnicities. I think that women are really kind of this culture, which is really cool to study. Okay, great. So what does all this mean? What do all these arguments have to do with feminism? And why is it important to understand all of the background for the word feminism? I think it's important to understand the history of a movement and everything that goes along with it before you make an opinion on it. While I didn't get into necessarily specific historical events, at least you understand what the different branches are of feminism. And I'm sure you understand the general historical events of feminism, such as women's suffrage and fighting for equal rights. And now it's more so, rights about our body and things such as abortion that are being talked about primarily. I don't think that you can identify as feminist or say you hate or disassociate the word or anything like that until you understand, hi Adonis, until you understand all of these different sections of feminism, because all of them really make up what feminism is. Feminism has grown over the past couple hundred years and has been shaped and molded really to fit what was needed in that time period. So when people say now that they don't understand feminism or why feminism exists, because we already have the right to vote, well, that type of feminism was relevant in the 1900s because women didn't have the right to vote at that time. So that's what feminism was for, specifically in that time period. Now we need feminism for something much bigger, and that's the best thing about feminism, is that it develops and grows with the time to really get into the issues of what's relevant. Why would we be fighting for the right to vote right now? We have that as women, we have that. I do not believe that any of these sections of feminism spurred from an evil or hateful place, but because of a societal impact that spurred the need for a specific type of thought. I have personally felt the effects of oppression against women. I have personally been victimized and sexualized as a woman, and I don't appreciate it, and I am not the type of person to sit back and do nothing. I'm very loud, I'm very vocal, and this blog and this YouTube channel are because I felt a need to speak out about it, and I felt a need to inform people about it. So not just the negatives of what's going on in the world, but the positives as well, and helping younger women or even older women who may not have felt this connection before really find their voice and feel comfortable in their own body and in the world and find their place. When I say that I am a feminist, it means I am actively in defense of women's rights. And there's a few goals that I have with that as well. The first being bringing equality to all genders, all of them. The second is to get rid of toxic masculinity, because toxic masculinity brings both women and men down and can oppress very much so other genders as well. And then the third goal is to get rid of the old mindset that older generations have been brought up with, because the way we are raised really affects what we believe, and I don't want to use that against somebody. I want them to start having the conversation with younger generations now of why we're trying to be progressive about this, and hopefully with conversation and knowledge and different backgrounds and mindsets, we can come together and actually start solving these goals and issues, because older generations think differently, but they might have better ideas on how to fix issues, and they're wise people. The more people that come together, the better. So the reasons for and against the word feminism itself, while I understand what people are saying, that they don't want to identify with the word feminism, I really think that they're thinking of an outdated use of the word and a specific sect of feminism as well. So to attack the word, if you have the same goals, does the word really matter? And I'll advocate for the word feminism as much as possible, but at the end of the day, if you are fighting for the equality of gender rights, of women's rights, then I don't care as much. But I hope this shed a little bit of light as to why the word is not as bad as people think. And I hope that I have stopped a few of those looks from happening in the future. Because I don't want them anymore every time I tell people I'm a feminist. I'd really appreciate it if it stopped. I'd also like to end this video with a quote that I really love from Emma Watson. It's something that I think encapsulates this whole video into one sentence. It is not the word that is important, but the idea and ambition behind it. I know this was a little bit of a longer video, but I hope that it was informative and helpful. I didn't get too in depth with all of these different sections, but I plan on making a blog post about it soon to delve a little bit deeper into those and maybe some historical context as well, just to give you some background on the subject. So I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you gained some knowledge from it, and I hope it started the conversation. So look out for my blog post coming soon. I'll leave a link down to my blog below, and let me know if you identify as a feminist in the comments, and why. Give me some insight and some ideas of what your opinions are on this topic. I'm curious, and I want to know everybody's thoughts and ideas behind it, because I am one person and you are the rest of the world. And also, let me know what other questions you guys have about feminism. I'd love to discuss them more in either another video or an upcoming blog post, and I want to make sure that it's directly with the questions that you guys have about it. So if you think that you're missing any information still on the subject, or you want to talk about it a little more, leave them in the comments below. And of course, if you are more interested in the subject, I definitely recommend getting this book, giving it a skim through. You don't need to read it like cover to cover just to get the information. It's a pretty easy book to read and has a lot of great insights in it, so I definitely recommend. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys later.